I didn't actually realize personally, but I know people have talked a little bit about the fact that Winston got the super for like 8 years or something crazy like that, even though he earns mad fucking money. And so they were having a bit of conversations around the fact that if we go based off of census 2023 data, so we're using the census data, but it showed that more than 9,000 people aged over 65 were earning more than $200,000 a year, with another 33,000 earning between $100,000 and $200,000. And it turns out that because the superannuation is essentially a universal basic income, but only for old people, which I thought was interesting when I realized that, because they use the term universal benefit, I believe, which I just found interesting, the fact that it's technically a universal income, but I'm sure if you asked Winnie his thoughts on a UBI, like for everyone, he would absolutely kick a fit. And I just found it interesting because how they said there is 33,000 people who are earn between $100,000 and $200,000 would still be able to get super entitlements. And I was like, I'm poor. Those numbers don't really feel real to me. What does that mean? So that means that anyone who earns essentially 1,436 between 1,436 per week, all the way up to $2,690 per week, would still be entitled to $222 a week from the government, even though someone who isn't on anywhere near that much, you have, I think, the salary of approximately $765 versus 2,400, so that's the numbers we're working with, they would only be entitled to $444, which means that those who are earning well over double, more like triple their salary, are entitled to 50%, like the kind of amount that they're getting, which those numbers are fucked. And it's interesting, and I hope they do actually look to do. I mean, I don't know if this current government would do that, because obviously Winston would probably kick up a stink, but I think it's really interesting to see that there's actually a lot of money that's potentially going to people who already earn a lot of fucking money all the time. And it's also wild to me that we'll do that for, retirees. And like, don't get me wrong, you pay your taxes all your life. I totally understand that part. But if you're comfortably living on thousands a week, you don't need to be topped up from the government an extra couple $100. Like what? That extra couple $100 might just go in your savings, or might go on, I don't know, a fucking golf club membership, or whatever the hell old people do with their retirements. I don't know. But yeah, it just seems a bit ridiculous that we don't allow those types of universal basic incomes for any other, demographic, especially students, given the fact that we're hoping that they'll get educated and then be able to get higher paying jobs and be able to contribute more to the country that they live in. Like, rather than, not to sound grim or anything, people who are going to die soon and not really contribute much, and they might just get sick. Again, still happy for them to have their money, but it does seem a little topsy-turvy to me. Oh, did you mute yourself?
Sorry.
That's all good.
Do you want me to add to that story for you?
Yes, sure, go for it. I didn't realize you
the IRD has warned that the government needs to increase taxes. It says increase in 2060, but I think it means by 2060.
Yeah.
Based on the article. But to cope with the aging population, government. But yeah. in government spending, which is things like the superannuation. So Inland Revenue is warning that unless the government spends its money on changes, taxes will need to increase in the coming years to cope with an ageing population. It's currently seeking submissions on its latest long-term insights briefing, which I haven't found, but I will try and find that. In the coming years, if the current settings are maintained, government spending as a proportion of the economy will rise. A core driver of these fiscal pressures is that New Zealand's population is ageing. By 2060, a quarter of the population will be older than 65. So those are the people that are... the amount of government needs to spend on superannuation and healthcare will increase if the government maintains current policies. So obviously, if you're over 65, tend to be aging and need
Wait,
more
that'll be
support.
us.
Well, there you go. That's fuck
And
me.
also,
That's us.
that goes with a comment that I just laughed at. You know, they'll only start means testing super once millennials start getting it. Also, oh man, that's us.
That's right, we're at the bottom end of millennials. We're good.
You know, but I did the math. That's 25 years from, was it 35 years from, was it 25 or 35? No, 35 years from now. And we're 30. 30 plus 35 is 65. We'll be exactly 65. That's, right
at the time, we'll be fucked.
YOLO.
So the Treasury predicted that the government expenditure will exceed government revenue by 13% of GDP by 2060 if the government takes no response to fiscal pressures. The existing taxes would need to be levied at a higher rate, such as higher levels of income tax or GST, or there would need to be new taxes implemented. And they talk about our tax is more limited in terms of our capital gains than other OECD countries. There's a general absence of capital gains tax. There's this is fascinating. It pointed to an estimate for a tax working group report in 2019 that if a capital gains tax took effect from 2022 tax year, it would raise about $3 billion in the 2026 tax year. That's a lot of money. That's like a lot of money.
$1.1 billion more than they gave to landlords.
That's still a good amount of money.
No, that is. That's great. And I mean, also, you know what else we could have got heaps of tax money off? If we legalized cannabis back in the referendum, we would have had an amazing revenue because let's be fucking honest, New Zealanders most of us smoke weed and we just act like it's not a fucking thing. But yet, I bet if you don't smoke weed at the chat, you definitely know someone who does. And that's what I'm saying. It's so normalized, yet we're not doing the smart thing and just making tax off of it. I shouldn't be able to go to New World and buy 1,000 different types of craft beer, but I can't go to a dispensary and find the medicine that is actually targeting what I need. Stupid.
So the other thing they said was GST was a substantial source of tax revenue. If it were to be increased, there would be concerns about the effect on lower income households. I love that they've made this part of it because this is a really good point. While wealthier households pay more GST overall, poorer households spend more of their money on GST because it's relative. You know, if you're earning $1,500 a week and you're paying maybe $200 or so on food a week, but someone who's only earning $500 a week is paying $200 on food, they're only left over with $300 as opposed to $1,300. So that's a very good point made. So GST could be applied at a lower rate on some goods and services that were bought by lower income households, or there could be an assistance via the welfare system to help those households. Several international and New Zealand focused studies have shown that using cash transfers is a more cost-effective way to target assistance to lower income groups compared to applying lower rates to certain goods and services. Several countries have implemented permanent GST offset schemes for this reason. This is fascinating. The report used modelling of GST at 18%. That's a huge, and that's a pretty big increase already. 18%, that's a lot of money. A lot of GST.
Yeah.
So there's also things like the payroll tax, wealth tax, inheritance tax, land and property tax, which could also add to the tax bases in the New Zealand system. There were trade-offs for all of them. So payroll taxes provide a means of shifting the balance of taxation away from capital income onto labour income, but they are likely to have some disadvantages relative to GST and income tax. Wealth taxes are are likely to impose higher distortion. So this is where I wasn't 100% sure. I don't know if you can correct this. I'm not a tax expert. Should have got Brabba. Wealth taxes are likely to impose higher distortionary costs than a broad-based income tax, and they face similar challenges to those that would make an idealized income tax that includes accrued capital gains impractical.
Okay, well, distortionary costs refer to negative effects that taxes and other governmental interventions have on economic behavior, leading to inefficiencies and reduced overall welfare. So I guess it's like, how sometimes they talk a bit about like, it's not just a cost of what you're spending the money on, it's a cost of what you're not spending on, where those things will have effects, I believe.
And they actually, yeah, it starts making sense now. So inheritance taxes are likely to have similar distortionary costs to income taxes when people are intentional donors, but they have much lower distortionary costs when people are unintentional donors. And then land taxes are widely seen as one of the least distortive taxes. They impose fewer distortionary costs than property taxes or stamp duties. So, however, they would have a significant impact on certain groups, as with any tax, providing preferential tax treatment to certain groups, or in certain situations, would tend to increase efficiency costs and reduce horizontal equity on some margins. So I already said that this underscored the importance of income tax and GST being designed in a way that was as efficient and fair as possible, while having the flexibility to adjust to changing revenue needs. So there's some good stuff in there. It's nice that something like the IRD, which I guess it's their department, is pointing to this stuff and saying we need changes. Here's the evidence. We are going to be in a shitty situation. It's going to end up like bloody rates, where it's like, don't raise the rates, don't touch my rates, and then suddenly we have to increase them by 20% or so, and people are freaking out.
No, yeah, absolutely. I also, this comment here, just how about that? In that same one, Chloe and Craig made a great point of how we don't calculate loss of earnings and big picture types of things. Yeah, like there is a lot that can be affected, and I mean, we definitely need, and because like I know you mentioned earlier about how like with land taxes and stuff, and I kind of thought about the rates issue, and I know that people get all like fucking thing about rates, and for me the rates issue is less about the rates shouldn't go up, and it's more about the fact that local government shouldn't be forced to only have like one main like stream of revenue. Like the government gets way proportionally a lot more money, and yet they expect the councils and the local governments to do so much more with so much less as well. Like I think we need to also, like, those systems, I imagine they'll be making things so much worse, because how could they not? They all have an effect on each other, and it just seems like there is a lot of issues with that, and I don't see. I guess I'm just feeling hopeless right now, because I'm like, I don't see this government prioritizing that.